I'm stopping here to do some artwork I've been doing. If you've noticed, if you've been on my Insta feed, where I basically S-post my art all day, you'll have seen these. I'm working on smaller PSYOP card-sized landscapes and compositions. I drew a friend's dog yesterday. It was like trying to kill me through the fence. Just its way of saying hi. It's just one of those dogs. It's like extremely big. It looks aggressive, but that's just because they're big and they're scary looking if you don't know what you're looking at. But they're just saying hi. And they just say hi in a very aggressive manner. But the fence protected me. It probably only would have hugged me, to be honest. I think she recognized me. But anyway, she sat still for a portrait. I was just sitting there drawing the dog, and I was like, wow. I've never had a cat do that before. So if you've been in the Discord server, you've seen I've set up a forum. And it's going to be kind of a trickle at first. I mean, we're not going to just rush into everything at once. So what we're doing, yeah, I was at a birthday party last night for a relative and ended up staying up kind of late. But as far as what we would have discussed last night, it was mainly the new forum I put up because we're starting this great deconstruction and we're putting it into action. So essentially what it means is instead of just posting in a single thread, this infinite thread, which I love, you know, this whole Discord thread we have, the think tank, but it is kind of like a one-way thing. It's not really super organized. And I rely on usually a lot of scrolling every day to catch up. It's just like I'm always scrolling. And a lot of stuff does get lost. And the search function is there. I've been kind of using that, but it's not going to do the work we needed to do here. So what we're doing is we're having a separate thread for every single PSYOP. And everything about that particular PSYOP will be put in that thread. Links, images, any discussion, lists of what we consider to be hoax indicators. And, oh, by the way, a couple of things too. Elon Musk said that politicians are all scripted and we don't know who writes their scripts. It's always funny when he does this because he's one of them. You know, it's just, that's Musk being Musk, but I thought that's fascinating because I was talking about how in the new Wizard of Oz movie, Wicked, part 2, for good. Well, actually in part 1 I said this. I said the Wizard of Oz is templated off of Trump. This movie has a leftist bent politically. It's Antifa coded. And that is definitely Donald Trump, and Wizard of Oz is like the American dream and it's all fake and a fraud. Because, you know, the big reveal is Dorothy's like, oh, you're not really a wizard. You don't have any real magic. But I was talking about how he's basically Trump. And I don't know why, but there's this part in the movie. Well, I do know why. Because it has nothing to do with the Wizard of Oz story. It's about Trump and MAGA. So there's this part where the witch is saying, you know, I know you're fake. You have no real powers. Why don't you just come clean and tell everybody that you've been lying this whole time? And he says, they wouldn't believe me. They believe what they want. They believe in Oz, and nothing's going to change that, basically. And he controlled the propaganda, and the whole movie is about propaganda and how they're using propaganda to make the witch into the wicked witch, even though she's really the only one doing anything good. And Glinda, the good witch, is a selfish, detached narcissist who doesn't really care about the munchkins or the animals and was willing to turn a blind eye to their plight and didn't care that the wizard was lying. But that's because she was fake also. No real magic. But the reason I watched it is because the title, For Good, I knew this was going to have tie-ins to Renee Good. So my review is called For Renee Good. Wicked, For Renee Good. A lot of classic cars drive by here on Sundays. Tons of cyclists as well. Looks like some kind of a convoy. But anyway, I had suggested that what the Wicked Witch represents is the outsider, the marginalized, the immigrant. She's got the green skin. Obviously, there's some easy to decode meaning to that in the way that she's looked at. But she represents the Antifa. Because what happens is when she recognizes that the Wizard of Oz is fake and the Munchkins are all brainwashed, she realizes that the animals are being pulled out of society secretly, like ICE. So part one was happening. In the part one, it was already happening, the ICE thing, where the animals that could talk were suddenly prohibited from speaking in public, and they lost their equal rights, and then they were being kidnapped and nobody knew where they were going. So that was like, okay, wait. She's kind of like Antifa going against the fascist Trump, and she's defending the oppressed. And she's one of them. She comes from the marginalized side. She relates, and her best friend does not. And she's trying to get her best friend, Glinda, to use her power and privilege to fight for the oppressed. And that's the message of part two, the renouncing of privilege. Both Glinda and her fiance, the fiance in particular, steps down and joins the struggle against Oz. But when the movie opens up in part two, the witch is flying around disrupting the forced labor, where the police of Oz have the animals out doing labor, building the Golden Brick Road, which later you find out that the bricks are like fake, made of foam or something. The wizard joked about it while hitting himself in the head with one. And this is before he said, not only will the people believe what they want to believe no matter what he says, but he says, paraphrasing, that truth is just what everyone wants to be true, and that people already believe a whole lot of lies. And he says, you know what they call it? History. Like, he blatantly says, history is a construct and a series of lies that people want to believe in. So what's the meaning of that? Like, how does that relate to the movie? It's kind of interesting. Like, it almost seemed like a big reveal. If you look at Oz and the Wizard as Trump and America and Antifa. And now, again, why are the people in Minnesota rioting? They're doing it for good. And the code is all just simplistic anyway. Greater good, for the good, be a good person. But for good is just, it's a catchy slogan. I would suggest that's why the name was chosen. By the way, speaking of names, somebody was talking about the name Nick and how prevalent it was in the last few months when you had that Nick Shirley and then Nick Reiner in the news, and then Nick Maduro, then Renee Nick Cole. Good. And I looked it up, and Nicholas means victory. And I thought, could that be the significance of Maduro wearing Nikes? Because Nike is the goddess of victory. And there's a big story about how the sweat suit that he wore when he was arrested is selling like crazy now because of the promotion he gave it. I mean, that's product placement right there. And that's how the thing operates. When we say predictive programming, we're talking about product placement. And what is the product? Some manufactured historic event, some pre-planned, scheduled long in advance, fake event that will go down in the history books as real. And so in our Discord server, I'm putting down not only the events that we're going to deconstruct, but also the historic personages, the actors, the people, the walking psyops, the walking mind viruses. For example, Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk was in a couple of movies in 2010. Black Start, some CIA-connected documentary about nuclear fallout and blackouts. And her father has this thing called Prepper Emporium, like EMP, Emporium, where the theme is just post-apocalypse. Well, it turns out she's in another one called November Renaissance, where she's on a rooftop in Fort Haktua or something like that. And she's got a sniper rifle. I'm like, that's kind of funny, because we were all just kind of betting on when's Candace Owens going to say that Erica Kirk did it. And by the way, Candace Owens is doing this thing, and I don't know if I respect this stance. necessarily. Because it's, what she said is, my husband asked me some questions, and I told him, I'm not a flat earther, but I'm not a round earther either. I just don't believe in science because it's a pagan religion. Like, there's something word salady and incoherent about tying all that together like that. But you can't just say I'm not a round earther, but I'm not a flat earther without explaining it, because it doesn't make sense. Like, what are you saying exactly? Are you saying it's a cube? Maybe it's a big rectangle. I mean, what are you saying? When are we on the back of a tortoise? Like, what do you mean when you're saying you're not a round earther? Like, what is the alternative? Are you saying you're shape agnostic? Because that's a better question. A better way of putting it is shape agnostic, but agnosticism is only valid absent a better solution, or absent a solution that hasn't been, or an answer that hasn't been discredited. So is it warranted to say that you're a shape agnostic today? And in most cases, with most situations, I would say there's a lot of information. You can become an informed disbeliever. You don't have to be like completely in the dark agnostic about what it could be. But I think you can fairly suspend judgment because you don't trust the institutions that are the only ones that have access to the means to show you what it looks like. And they have a propensity for lying, a history of lying. So you're totally in the right to say, well, I don't know. But I'd be curious to know what she thinks. Because here's what I'm thinking. If you're stuck on this fence between, well, I don't believe it's this ridiculous disk in space, because I don't believe in space, and I can't really ascribe a shape to it, and I can't really refute the system from within the system, what other possible explanation can there be without having to, I guess, rely on access to a view from space? And I'm thinking, well, maybe, because one thing we can agree upon is whether or not you concur with the globe. What we're questioning here is the veracity of the images of it that we've been shown, including the ISS version of it. And there are versions. And what I'm saying here is that it could easily be the case that the Earth is, as they say, oblate, spheroid, 25K circumference, orbiting once every 24 hours, 1,000 miles per hour, however they explain it. But so that's all fine. But it doesn't mean that what they've shown us is the entirety of it. Or, I mean, it doesn't need to be size. I mean, maybe there's more land than they say, and it's off limits. And if you get into the idea that we're somehow behind, like we are 200 years behind technologically, those who rule over us, I've been thinking about this, because I have people saying AI already existed. And I'm like, how do you arrive at that? That's some iterative technology that would require huge data sets, studying faces. We're talking about deep learning. You can't just create that out of a vacuum. It has to progress off of everything else. It's like you wouldn't invent the iPhone 13 right after a rotary phone. You got some stages to go through. So I've completely rejected the idea of advanced technology of that type. However, if there's another continent we don't know about, they may already have developed these things, and we've been given a false timeline for their dissemination. So the only way I can possibly entertain the notion of advanced tech is if it pre-existed, if it already existed before. It had to have been, it couldn't have just been, it would have to already have gone through all these processes. And so it couldn't happen absent of a civilization that would allow the thing to emerge. And we've discussed this many times, this idea of history concealing, not just retconning and rewrites, but actually manufacturing a worldview. And so if we are in the village, like the movie, and the village consists of the known continents, but this is not all of it, and if we've been put into something this sophisticated, a mental cage that holds 8 billion minds, then maybe it's reasonable to assume that those on the outer lands, the extraterrestrials, already have some pretty cool technology. And they dole it out. I don't think that land that's being concealed is necessarily pristine. It would explain quite a lot, but I'm interested in what you all think about it. Even without confronting the notion of the shape and them lying about the science and the whole solar system, even if you just acknowledge the media fakery, there's reason enough to speculate. Like, what are they hiding? Unless you just want to trust them. It's like, well, we know that they bend the news, they bend history for purposes of control. So why wouldn't we think that they're messing with the cartography? The one thing that matters, really, resources, land. But I've had different ideas about this. You know, I mean, it can be pretty dark, but you know, you get into like science fiction, you can kind of find these types of stories. Like The Village is a very dark story. The idea of a commune where the people born into it don't know that it's the 20th century. And I wouldn't put it past the reptilian overlords to have already constructed those all over the place, possibly even underground. Like I was suggesting the other day that maybe the Martians are already here, and the Martians are just a bunch of children, probably of intelligence agents and people who work for NASA, put into some kind of experiment where they grow up in a Mars base, you know, to test this new vision for humanity. Whatever excuse they're given. Just like that movie we talked about the other night, the movie about the girl born in a simulated spaceship, Orbiter 9. And at the end you find out, by the way, in Orbiter 9, well, it's a spoiler, but if you haven't seen it by now, you've got plenty of warning. The idea was, if we're going to have to send people to another planet because the Earth becomes inhospitable because of capitalism, we have to make sure that they can survive on a ship for generations, what they call generational ships. So they have these human guinea pigs growing up in these simulated spaceships. This one's a romantic science fiction. Somebody falls in love with her and lets her out, and she's like in Denver all of a sudden. One minute she's in deep space, the next minute she's at a restaurant in Denver. Like Truman Show type stuff. Like, okay, so Truman Show. The idea of a staged world, like, I don't think it's that far-fetched. It's 100% achievable, if you ask me. It sounds dystopian, but imagine, you know, like Epstein Island, for example. The idea of you have this private place, you can create whatever aesthetic you want. You know, you could have it look like Game of Thrones. Raise everybody to think it's the Dark Ages. If you haven't seen Space Cadets, I recommend it. At least watch the ending. It's a 10-episode reality TV show where these wannabe astronauts thought they were in low Earth orbit. And the big reveal is, after they pulled the walls down and showed them that they never left the Earth, the big secret behind it was, out of the 10 astronauts, 5 of them were actors. And so you can understand how those who had doubts weren't able to really voice those doubts because they were monitored. The 5 who weren't actors weren't forming conspiracy theories about how the ship was fake. They were kept apart. They were gate kept. Because had half the population of the ship come up with serious doubts as to whether they're in space, they might have checked it. So I thought that's kind of revealing. You know, peer pressure, but also isolating mind viruses by preventing people from collaborating so they don't arrive at the right conclusions. What's that allegory about the elephant in the dark room and 5 different people palpate it and no one can figure out what it is? I got to find that one. Because we're talking about something that big. And that's what the deconstruction project is about. So what I have in the forum are a list of people and events that we're going to break down from a metascript perspective. And the agenda here is we want to separate the 2 timelines. If you're still programmed and going with the program, you don't know there are 2 timelines. You think there's one because you're confused. And by confused, I mean by fusing fake and real the dominant paradigm, the consensus worldview, is by definition confused. It's a confusion of the two. They've been merged. So what we're doing is we are taking these two timelines apart so that you can separate the two. Because if you can't separate them, then you can't claim to be deprogrammed. Because the secondary timeline is the program. What I usually term here the meta script. The script is the story, the fake history. But it exists on a timeline. It's not make up as you go. It's planned long in advance. In some instances, we're finding decades. So it seems to me that the project here will reveal that, because as we separate the two, the predictive and concurrent programming and all the drills will paint a certain picture. And we'll be able to surmise how far back in advance, according to our estimates, each one of these events would have been planned, or these people would have been designed, created, these characters.